Welcome everyone. This is the June event, and I am alone today. Shame. Cailin is off sick, and I'll be running things alone today. But that's absolutely fine. I'm glad you just going to have some time to recover. Therefore, this fabric news section we won't be doing today, unfortunately. But nonetheless, we're going to cover the rest of the agenda. Yeah, I also have to just multitask slightly. So, like I said, I've got to just admit people from the lobby as they come in. And I'm a guy, I can't multitask that well. So nonetheless,
remember that while you're presenting and stuff, then that's fine.
I didn't hear you, Darryll. What's that?
I can help you with that while you're doing your presentations and stuff. That's fine. I can admit this side as well.
Right, because you're a presenter, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, tremendous. Thank you. And Karika, I saw that you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to suggest the same thing, that I'll also help.
Oh, okay. Is that because you were a presenter previously and maybe that's how it was all set up?
I don't know, but
otherwise...
I have the ability to go yes, yes, to let people in.
Wow, you've got the power as well. Okay, well, that's great. I can only assume... I don't normally set up the Teams meeting. Okay, so Cailin does that. And I suspect because you, both you and you've presented previously and Darryll's presenting now, I think you have special power. So that's great. Okay, anyway, let's kick off. Welcome again to the June event. I actually don't have my camera on, but I'm looking at a different screen, so hopefully that's not too serious. Here's our agenda. As I mentioned, Cailin is off sick today, so we'll be skipping her section. So JP will start us off soon. Then I've got a quick BI flash on visual calculations. I'll explain that a little bit more. Then I've got, I will be introducing Darryll Groenewald, who will be doing the main topic today, working with Snowflake schema calculations. So that's the main presentation. Looking forward to that. We have just our normal PowerPoint that I've just got to get through quickly. So let me just click on the right slides. Okay, so I'm doing the introduction right now. There's the agenda, as we've just mentioned, and there's the closing. There are one or two other things that I just want to mention. The first thing is today is an even numbered month, meaning June is the 6th month, and in even number months we are online only. Okay, so here's the layout right over here. So next month we will be doing hybrid, which means in person at the Intellect offices, but also online for those who can't make it in person. We always encourage people to come be there in person. Obviously you get to have, pizza and drinks, but you also get to meet people, and after all, that's what it's all about, networking and learning. So if you can make it on a Thursday, the last Thursday of each month, that would be preferable. We'll get to the slide in a minute. I am looking for volunteers, please. And just to make a note while I'm on this whole story here, the 18th of September, that is not following the normal pattern. And in actual fact, that's the one I can't make because I'll be at the Fabric Conference in Vienna. So Cailin will be running that herself. But the following week, that Thursday is just before a long weekend, which is why we didn't have it then. But now it's awkward because it does clash with FabCon. But nonetheless, that's the only anomaly to the normal pattern, although we did have an anomaly earlier in the year. But okay, cool. So I do want to just do a little bit more housekeeping, please. I jumped past this screen very, very quickly. Please, this is an online only meeting, so there's no one in person. I guess that's a bit easier from that point of view. Just mute your audio. If you want to put your video on, it actually is wonderful if that is the case. We get to see each other, although I'm a bad example. I've just turned mine off because of looking at the different screen. But if there are any questions, please just raise your hand. It just makes it a bit easier that way. And then at the end of the session, I would like to ask you to please do the survey. Just gives us feedback in terms of what you thought of today's sessions and the speakers, and any comments or suggestions that you might have, as well as if you are keen to volunteer for next month. Okay, so there's the volunteer slot there. please feel free to volunteer, whether or not that is for a main presentation, which is typically 30 or 40 minutes, or for a BI flash, which is somewhere between 5, 10, and 15 minutes. It's not as scary as you think. If you've done something fun and exciting and you think others could benefit from that learning, please feel free to share it with the group. Okay, so that's what a BI flash is all about. And then I guess I may as well just get all of the admin done at the beginning so that we can concentrate on the speakers. So what we've also started doing is, sorry, I had it open. Let's just check. I seem to have lost all my windows. I had it open in, we've got a GitHub repository now, okay? And I'm going to put the link into the chat, okay? I just ran out of time to create the QR code like we have for the survey. But anyway, there is the link to the GitHub repository, okay? That was requested late last year, okay? And so now what we've got there is, as you can see from late last year, November, okay, sequence is slightly out. Oh, that's not, it's actually correct. We didn't have a December event because of the holidays, okay? But we've got November, January, February, March, April, May, and of course, we will soon add June. If you click on the GitHub project, you will see if we do post links, we'll put them in here. Sometimes there's a link to Power BI training or something like that. Other times there's no link, but there's typically always content. So we had the news by Vosse last month, we had the fabric news by Cailin, and then we had James's presentation on data storytelling. So those are all uploaded there for you to access. Unfortunately, GitHub doesn't allow PDFs or PowerPoints, so they are individual images each page. Unfortunately, but I guess that's still better than nothing. Okay, so that's how we've done it that way. So please take note of that GitHub, of the GitHub URL so that you can get to the content. Like I said, it's in the chat, and in future sessions, I'll have the QR code, and too many windows all over the place. I'll have that as a QR code, which is going to be easier for everyone to scan. Okay. All right. So that's enough of all of that. JP, if you are ready, I will introduce you now, and you are welcome to then get yourself ready. I'll stop my sharing. And hopefully you've got the power to share. Let me just see if I can do that, because normally, like I said, Cailin does that. Are you able to share? Oh, yes, you can. Tremendous. All right. So JP is, yes, brilliant. Thank you. Let me just do a quick intro for you. Thank you. JP's part of the SADO Analytics team. We all work together, and I'm grateful that he could do the Power BI news for us. JP, over to you. Take it away. Thanks.
Thanks, Sven. Okay, I'm just going to maximize it. Thank you. So I'm going to present the news today. Due to time constraints, as we previously said, I'm not going to go too technical or in too much detail on all the slides. It will just be a summary. So, like Sven said, I'm an analytics consultant at SADO Analytics, and there are my personal details if you do want to contact. And then the first, it's not the announcement, but the first topic is the celebrations of Power BI. That's 10 years old, and they've got a couple of things that you can participate in or engage in with the community. You can enter the data visualization contest. You can prepare for your PL 300 exam. You will be able to get a discount exam voucher. If you start Power BI, you're going to see there's some nice animations with the different icons, just to show how Power BI evolved over a certain time frame. InnoCube will have a virtual birthday party on the 24th of July. And then if you share your story with the hashtag Power BI 10, you can stand a chance to win a prize. And there's a link where you can find more information regarding the 10th birthday celebrations of Power BI. And then, as Sven said, he's going to FabCon. So FabCon is back next year as well, third year. So there is still tickets left for FabCon for September in Vienna, and then next year in Atlanta. And there are some discount vouchers available if you will go through. So the first announcement that I have is you have the collaboration on sensitive data in Power BI desktop. You can set up your classification or sensitivity labels either as confidential or internal use. And there are a couple of benefits that is applicable if you do apply the sensitivity labels. You will comply with your organizational policies by classifying your data, like we said, as confidential or internal use. You can encrypt your file using your organization requirements. There are certain restrictions that is applicable. You'll just need to read through the documentation to read on the limitations that's currently applicable. Then there were some visual calculations updates. You can now create visual calculations faster with parameter pickers like we have here on the top picture. It's just an easier and faster way to write visual calculations, and there are more resilient to changes in the visual as we have here. Hope this is in the way. Okay, I think it's gone. Yeah, and then in the past, if you have if you reference the access and it wasn't referenced, you would receive an error now, but they removed the limitation. So if a reference to a non-existent access is permissible and it will be ignored. There is some further instructions and examples on the monthly update on the website itself. There you go. Then just 3 little small ones. Sparklines is generally available now. It has been in preview since December 2021. It is now made easier if you work the sparklines with the calculation groups, and then you can see you can choose between individual values or an entire sparkline with a certain parameter that you choose. On Azure Maps, there's some updates to tenant settings that is quite elaborate, so you can just read through that as well. And they made the support available for South Korea locations. And then on external tools, they enabled some write-back options for you on your semantic model. And then there's some updates to the apps in a Power BI service part. We can include paginated report items in an app. Also some limitations, what you need to do, that is available on the website to read through. Yeah, and then you can also use Copilot also in your apps, and that's to be enabled. And there's some limitations as well. Once again, what you can read through on the website. And then this one is probably the biggest, for me, the biggest announcement is that you can do Power Query editing in the service for import models. You can get your data, transform your data, and refresh your import models only on the web. No need for your Power BI desktop, so that is quite nice. I think that would cater for a lot of use cases. And then if it's going on, and then just the third-party visuals, that's quite nice with updates this month is the network graph and the drill down visual by Zoom charts. And then there's some links where you can read up on this update this month with more technical data behind this. We can join the community and we can download Power BI. And that's it. Thanks, Sven.
All right, brilliant. Thank you. Just to try and get some user participation, I was curious if perhaps we could do a show of hands and anyone who wants to share some comments about some of the updates. I was thinking about sparklines. I would say, I just have this inkling that everyone loves sparklines, including myself, and yet I actually find that I never use them, and it's just gone GA now. So it's been out for a while. I'm just curious, how many of you out there, by show of hands, use sparklines? What do you guys think about it? Feel free to unmute yourself and share. Any hands up, thumbs up, raised hands, just to get a sense? Does that mean that there's no one using sparklines at the moment?
not
I
using
think
it?
I think it's a case when even like the field parameters, if some people are using it even if it's not GA yet. So yeah.
Oh, I see. No. Well, I was just curious. I would have thought that there would be some people out there to use Sparklines because Sparkline's been in Excel for a very long
Yes.
time. And the reason why I don't use it, actually, I did an experiment. We were doing some Power BI training with some people when Sparklines came out. And we simulated the actual Sparkline in a line graph and then obviously condensed it and collapsed it, to pretend it was a small little Sparkline. And we actually found that the Sparkline didn't seem to render accurately. So it actually just put me off then. And I just decided, well, it was kind of misleading. Now, that maybe is a bit unfair because you might find that they've enhanced the mathematics and how they render necessarily a long time series in a very, very compact space. But anyway, so that's why I don't use it. But I see from the user participation that no one else does. Interesting. Let me ask you the second question. How many of you are using the service, meaning Power BI service, powerbi.com, to edit data models, semantic models? Okay, so that functionality has been out for a while. As you heard from JP, the ability to do Power Query in the service is now new as of this month. Now that's very, very cool. And I've got more to mention about that. But first, let me just find out how many of you are editing semantic models in the service. Again, show of hands. Okay, so I've got Helen. Anyone else?
She's more advanced than all of us then.
Well,
No.
it's not necessarily that, yeah. But
No,
anyway,
just-
Helen, you're welcome to share some feedback.
Yeah, so I think it's mostly if I have changes that need to go across various reports, but it's something that I also only use on occasion. The biggest reason why I only use it on occasion is because I often have to write measures as well with whatever I'm doing. And you can't quite, like, the functionality of writing measures, as far as I know, is not on the web version. So I still also then just default to the normal desktop version and then republish. But sometimes if it's a quick tweak that I need to make to the semantic model, then I'll do it on the web version.
Okay. Well, let me just build on that. So first of all, I mean, as I mentioned, that functionality has been out for a while. There's definitely a need for it. Sometimes you just want to make a quick change. The only thing there is obviously then you've got to make sure that your local version of the PBIX file is in sync because now the web version is different. So you either got to say, I'm only going to do it online or I'm only going to do it in desktop. That's just my feeling. One other concern there is that once you do something in the service, it's immediately saved. Now, I know that they're working on a roadmap to make version history available. Okay, so then you could roll back. Whoops, I've made a mistake. I've damaged the model. And of course, the model is live. Okay, so you could actually break something because it saves continuously. But with version history, you can roll it back. Okay, so that will definitely make things better. And I'm just thinking of a presentation that the Microsoft CAT team, the customer advisory team, that's something that Michael Johnson organized about this time last year. And they came out from overseas and they were saying how it's their mission, the Power BI team, to make the service experience in parity with the desktop experience, meaning whatever you can do in desktop, you will at some point in the future be able to do in the service. Whereas obviously right now we all know that the desktop environment is not only quicker, but it's also more complete. So in the service, they're not quite there yet, but that's certainly the plan. All right, well, cool. Just on the news, because we've got a bit more time, because the Fabric news is not happening due to Cailin's illness, we do have a little bit of spare time. So are there any questions or comments about the updates from the June updates? Anyone got some thoughts to share? Let's try and make it interactive. Yes, Darryll, go for it.
So just a quick question on that one about being able to update online. Wouldn't something like ARM Toolkit work better than editing your model, the semantic model online?
Yeah, okay. So the only problem with that is it's a premium feature. Okay, so ALM Toolkit is wonderful. If you've got a model, maybe a desktop model or another published model, and you want that model to be compared to another model, you can then run a difference between the two, and it will show you the first model has 10 measures, the second model has 12 measures, of which 2 have been deleted and 4 have been added. And then you can push the changes across, but it is a premium feature if you're doing it to the service. If you're doing it from one PBIX file to another, as in locally, then it doesn't involve the XML endpoints and stuff.
But
so
more for
you
the
can
service,
do it.
so that's got to be
Yeah.
premium capacity then.
Yeah, that's premium. And you're perfectly correct. I think that would be a better option than making your changes in the web. Okay. But there is a definite caveat. If you do ALM Toolkit to a model in the service, first of all, it has to be premium, as I mentioned. You have to enable XMLA endpoints, but then also you will not be able to download the PBIX file from the service. Some people do that a lot, and some people never do it. So it depends on the situation. But if you've done an ALM Toolkit push from local to the service, you will then no longer be able to download that service file. Just know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. The feature you've got to enable and the download that gets disabled. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from out there or comments? Because if not, then I'll move to my quick BI flash. Let me just record the time, 17:20, because I've got to make sure I leave enough time for Darryll to do his thing. All right, so fine. I'm going to share my screen quickly. Oopsie, got some. I'm just going to find who's talking and just mute them quickly.
I muted them.
Oh, nice. Thank you very much. Cool. All right. I am sharing my screen. It says visual calculations. Okay. So just quick background on why I've chosen to do this topic. It is because I presented another topic in the March event, and it was the simplicity and complexity of DAX, which we ran out of time. It was the main presentation, but we needed more time. And yeah, I guess DAX is so comprehensive that actually you need a lot of time. So we never ended up getting to the visual calculations part. So I had planned to do some DAX and then I say, oh, you know what, there's this thing called visual calculations. And I think I did it for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then thanks to people who completed the survey, they had said it would be nice to see more of visual calculations. So again, we really do pay attention to the survey. So if you've got any positive or negative comments, please do put them, capture them in the survey. But anyway, so now I'm just going to do roughly 10 minutes on visual calculations. Okay, so just some background on visual calculations. They've been around for a little while. Maybe I actually lost track when they arrived. Maybe 1.5 years to 2 years ago, somewhere around there. And I'll admit I dismissed them originally. I was like, no, there's pros and cons, as you will see. There's my agenda. They've got pros and cons. We'll work through this. Okay. And I figured the cons were not worth it. And so I didn't use them. Okay. Well, actually, I found a couple of scenarios where they are useful. I'm going to show that to you. So in the first half of this BI Flash, I'm going to just do PowerPoint for a bit, showing you pros and cons and definitions. And in the second half, I'm going to show you some actual visual calculations and some basic ones, and then one that I think is a really, really good use case for it. Okay, so that's what we're planning to do. So first of all, what are visual calculations? Let me just read. A visual calculation is a DAX calculation defined and executed directly on a visual. Visual calculations make it easier to create calculations that were previously hard to create, leading to simpler DAX, easier maintenance, and better performance. So let's just pause for a second. If you haven't used them, you might not know what I'm talking about. Just hold on. I'm going to show you this in a few minutes. But in fact, let me pause and get user engagement. With a show of hands, how many of you have used visual calculations? So Ezra has. Anyone else? Okay. Right then. So there are some pros and there are some cons. Okay. The pro is, as you mentioned, well, as it's mentioned here, it's easier. And in fact, filter context, which is what we were talking about in my previous topic, you know, the simplicity and complexity of DAX. Okay. Filter context can be a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it can also get in your way. And sometimes to do something that you can do in Excel so very easily, you can't do so easily in DAX. Now, even the black belt guys can sweat and struggle to write some fancy DAX to do certain things that in Excel are super simple, okay? And visual calculations pretty much have been invented to sort out that problem. I actually started to get more interested in visual calculations when I saw that Jeffrey Wang was involved in visual calculations. Now, he is the father of DAX, okay? So he knows what he's doing, and if he's involved in doing visual calculations, then they've obviously got big plans for it. As JP mentioned in the news, they've updated some features during the June update, and they've mentioned that there's more coming. Okay, so let me just mute. There we go. So there's more coming. So that's good. All right. But anyway, it's easier to do programming of the DAX. Okay. It can certainly improve performance. I'll cover that soon in the example. And by the way, if you've got a visual and you've got these 3 extra formulas, measures, I should say, in there, and you copy and paste it to another file, it just keeps working because the measure lives directly in the visual. Okay. But that is also a negative. Sorry, Ezra, you've got your hand up. Was that for saying that you're using visual calculations, or do you have a question? All right, you're on mute, but I'm going to presume it's an old hand. All right, so visual calculations only exist in the visual, which means if you need to use it on another page or another visual, you've got to write that measure again, okay? And it can't access the data model. So it can't access relationships and all those sort of things. It can only access what is in that visual, the 1, 2, or 3, or 5 columns that are in that visual, okay? And then it's also not available for some visual types. Okay, all right, but I must look sharp because I've already used 6 minutes of my time. No, 8 minutes of my time. So we've done the PowerPoint stuff. These next 2 slides are actually intended to be reminders that that's what we're going to cover, and that's what we're going to cover. And then just here, I'm gonna make this available in the GitHub repository. I guess I must put that into QR codes, because since GitHub has got JPEG pages of each of the pages, you won't be able to get this unless you type it out. Although now here I've said search visual calculations, the Learn portal has plenty, and then there's a little bit more here as well. Okay, but let's just do these 2, but let's do that live, which means visual calculations. Okay, so here is a very simple page. It's just got one visual on it. Okay, it's a matrix visual. And you'll see I've got sales amount, and let's just make it a bit bigger. Sales amount life to date, meaning cumulative. Okay. Right. So LTD. So that is the measure. Okay. To make a cumulative life to date story. And if it is that you know how to do it, great. If you don't know how to do it, you can use visual calculations. Okay, so that's the little icon right there to show that it's a visual calculation. And if you're on a visual, if you're on this visual, okay, home, new visual calculation. So you click on there. Now there's a list that you could choose from, basically little templates getting you started. And in this case, it's running sum. Okay, so I'm not going to click on it. Instead, I'm going to just edit the one that I've got in there already. So a couple of months ago, they've done some of the the coloring to show you this is where we're working, and it's using that. So that was a few months ago. And then this month, this is what JP mentioned, they've got this little thing here where you can actually do the drop down, and every measure that is being used in this visual is available. I can just go and select which one I want to instead of having to type it out. So they're just making it a bit easier for you. But don't forget, you can only use a measure that is in here. So if you've got 200 measures in your model, but only 3 measures in your visual, you can only use the 3 that are here. But don't despair, you can bring in a measure into the visual and then use it in a calculation like this one. But then you might say, well, that's a pity, because as an example, I don't want to show this measure, but I need it in order to do this running total, the running sum. Don't worry, you can then take the measure that's in this visual and you can go and hide it, okay? So by doing that, it's no longer in here. Yes, it is in the visual, but it's not visible up here. So that's the way to get around that, okay? All right, and so anyway, you had to write a whole lot of DAX normally, but now you just write running sum and you put that in, and there it is. It's doing the running total, okay? Then there's another one. Where's the other one? Sales versus budget, okay? If I hit edit on that one, okay, well, in this case, it's just doing measure 1 minus measure 2, so that's not very exciting. That's a super easy one to do in DAX as well. Fine, but then the other one is this one. So versus previous. Okay, so now there are many out there in our community. You can write the DAX to do, let's just say March versus the month. So let me go here. The sales amount of March versus the sales amount of February. Okay, in this case, it's minus, well, there's my month-on-month variance, 65,000. But some people don't know how to write that in DAX. So in a visual calculation, you literally write sales amount minus previous sales amount, and then it does it for you, okay? So that's a lot easier than, let's come out of the visual calculation. Let's go to the month on month, okay? And that is, I've just used some variables, sales amount, and then I've done it this, and I've gone back 1 month, and then I've done current minus prior, and that type of thing. Anyway, I've also just commented out, oh my goodness, I'm looking at the time. I've commented out this other one because I actually would prefer, can you just observe here, because we don't actually want this one where it's doing a variance of the total minus something else. So there's a little trick. So I'm just going to get rid of that one and actually, whoopsie, rather enable this one. So it's still using basically the same thing, current minus prior there, but I'm wrapping it in if has one value. So if month int or month or whatever is being used on the visual, then do current minus prior. But if not, do a blank. Okay, so just observe that number there. Okay, those numbers are gone. Okay, so now my month on month at the year level disappears, and at the total level it disappears. And that's quite nice because you're only comparing months against months. You don't really want to compare the years against the years and that kind of story. Look, I am aware that we're out of time. So, I mean, there's more that I wanted to cover. What I'll do then is let's just pause here. Let's hand over to Darryll because his is the main session. And I can cover some more if we've still got time left over. But anyway, look, I've covered the main. Oh, no, I haven't. Oh, no. Darryll, please, can you just give me 1 more minute? I have to share.
Take 5 more. Go for it.
I have to show something else. Okay, so anyway, this is visual calculations, and I've got another sheet which I could show you, blah, blah, blah. But the really, really main one that I actually wanted to show was this one. Okay, this is important. First of all, this is a demo environment of a report that I did for some rose flower farmers in East Africa. And it's a very, very busy page, okay? There's a need for it in this case. And let me just admit that person. It's all about the variety of roses, and they want to know which roses must they plant more of and which roses must they uproot and get rid of, okay? And it's based on whether they sell a lot or a little. So I've got the sales amount and then the rank, okay? So I can rank from lowest to highest, highest to lowest. So in this whole visual, green is good, okay? So the high sales amount is a good thing, red is bad, okay? But now there's more. I mean, if you're trying to evaluate what to grow and what to uproot, you don't just look at sales amount, you look at how many you're selling, the stem quantity, same sort of principle. Very important, the price that you're selling it at. And again, green is good. So a high price is a good thing, okay? And a low price is a bad thing. But then we've also got yield per square meter, and we've got chemical fertilizers. So actually, this is an opposite. So a low number is a good thing because we're using little chemicals and fertilizer. So now in this case, green is a low number and red is a high number, okay? Anyway, and then there's rejections, which is a similar principle. But to do this visual with rank on all of these elements, okay, and then to combine the end result, which is a weighting of all the other ranks, okay? If you've got millions of transactions, those who are using the rank function know that it's an iterator, so it goes row by row by row, and it's a very expensive, heavy measure, and now I've used it about 6 or 7 times along with a weighting. But at the end of the day, this is what you want. So those are the varieties to uproot, and these are the varieties to grow more of. And to do this on a page that is going to respond fast, actually Visual Calculations is perfect because it's not ranking the millions of transactions in the background. It is literally ranking only what it sees in this visual. So there's like 20 rows here, or maybe 50 varieties in the real world, and it performs far better. Okay, and for another 30 seconds, then I'm done. I promise. Let's just go there. Let's go there. All right, so what have you seen now? Now you're seeing some IntelliSense and coloring. So it's maroon and it's brown and whatever. So there's the maroon and there's the brown. And I've got a little weighting on there. Each one is weighted higher or lower. And it's just adding them up to get to the final score. And by the way, if you wanted to do that in DAX and do the weightings and all that stuff, I think you'd actually sweat quite a lot. And as I said, the page would be slow. But instead, Visual Calculations to the rescue. And now you say to the farm manager, grow more of this, uproot this, and life is good. All right, Darryll, I'm handing over to you. So as Darryll is starting to share his screen and get himself ready, I'll just say to you that Darryll Groenewald is based in Cape Town, works for FNB, we've worked together in the past, so I know him well, good friend of mine. I'm grateful that he could present today. Great topic. I know he's put a lot of effort into it. It's a real life situation which he has anonymized. Okay. So it's really helpful that there's a real life situation behind this because it's helpful for people to learn from it. But of course, it's confidential information, which is awkward and tricky. So Darryll, thank you for taking all the time to anonymize it and get it all ready. Please, I hand it over to you. Do your thing, and then we'll take questions and things at the end. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Sven. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Thanks.
And you can see my screen.
And I can see your screen.
Cool. So, yeah, it was actually a bit of a challenge that I reached out to Sven about initially. It was about how to make a Snowflake, not to be confused with Snowflake databases versus Snowflake schemas. Because that was one of the questions Sven actually asked as well. So it's more about the schema where you've got many-to-many. So like in this case, the employees references, idle time, shift time, employee profiles, etc. You've got job cards connecting to various other things. And this is completely anonymous data, so it's easy for us to share. We've also made it in such a way to use a concept idea, and then we took it away from the bank, so it's got nothing to do with that. So yeah, that's kind of like a logical view of what our schema would look like. In the real world scenario, this is the actual database, and it's got it's just one page of it, but you can see there's many connections all over the place. And the problem with this database is that the guys who developed it were designing an application smart database. So where the database doesn't handle the foreign keys and surrogate keys, the application was handling it. And that's kind of why this thing became so messy and hideous to work with. So here's a bit of our view. So if we just take it from as much as we could do like a top-down view, so you've got branches, and then from the branch you'll have device brands, which maybe some branches only work on specific devices. So maybe they only work on HPs and another branch only works on Dells. You've got your staff, and then your staff have got a profile, the shifts that they've worked in idle time. So in that regard, the profile is something that's going to say, okay, me as a staff member, I need to work from 8 to 5 every day, or I need to work from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. And on Saturdays, I need to work from 8 till 12. So that's what your profile will stipulate. And maybe you've got an hourly rate linked to your profile. And then your shift information, so that's a separate record. So that's maybe how you've logged in. So did you come to work? Did you come to work late or early? Did you leave early? That kind of thing. So those are just your shifts. Idle time, I'm not using it in this example, but there's an idle time table. So maybe you're waiting for parts in your job card. You're waiting for parts, or you're between jobs, so you've finished a job and you're going to go and fetch another job from a warehouse, then that'll be your idle time, and then they'll capture your time to say waiting for parts, waiting for approval, waiting for new job card, tea break, etc., lunchtime. And then just relating to all your job cards, so you could have the parts, labor is a separate table, there's notes for the job card you're working on. So what I've done is, in this example, I've used the job cards as a computer repair company, and they're trying to repair laptops and desktops and stuff, and so maybe they need parts, and there's labor for quotes and things like that, notes on the quotes, job definitions, maybe it's a screen repair, or it's a virus inspection check or scan, that kind of thing, hard drive scan. The status of the job card, is it open, closed, pending, waiting for the customer's feedback, etc. Test documentation, have they tested how it works and stuff. So that's really just high-level logical view of what our database looks like. And then what's not in this database is what we've obviously built in Power BI. If you want time intelligence, by default, please always remember your calendar. I need to hurry up. Quick things Sven asked us to touch on: normalized versus denormalized. So this is a normalized database. So normalized is where you've got a members or a staff table, and you've got the number of times they've visited a branch. Then you can capture that information and what the difference is between those things, so it's easier to maintain. Where a denormalized table, you kind of merge the two tables, but the problem with this is you repeat a lot of information. So you'll have the email address repeated in every line for every visitor, etc. Okay, I'm going to run through this just because of time quickly. So if we just look at our data that's in our database, so we've got our branches. So we've just got a branch code, a branch ID, and just a branch name. I've got 3 employees for the example, employee 1, 2, and 3, and then different branches. We've got some job card information, so a job card number, and you can see sometimes you can work on the same job card at different times. So like maybe they took a break there, or they were waiting for parts or whatever it is, and then they resumed with the job there. So that would be the duration of that. Start time, end time, durations, employee IDs, the guys who worked on it. Maybe on the parts table, so for the job card number. So what I've done here is that job card number there will relate to the job card number here. So that's based on our schemas. Maybe there's a part number and a price for the parts. For our shifts, what I've done here is just a high level. I just did it for 1 month's data for this guy, to say employee number 3, here's when he's clocked in, clocked out, etc. And then employee 2, I've just color coded them just to spot the difference there, and I'll explain the color coding. And then their profiles that I was speaking about. If we look at the profiles, was to say, okay, staff number 3, and this is where really the issue came in, was if you've got a staff member with 2 profiles, so like staff number 3 or employee number 3, he's got this profile for January, but then he gets a new profile in February, and maybe that's because he's got a promotion, or he's got a change in job title. Maybe he was just like a student that was working initially and now is full-time employed, so maybe he's got a different profile. But some guys could have a profile from October last year still. So how do we get to use those profiles in our calculations? Okay. Before we jump out, any questions on the data itself or anything? Nothing standing out for anyone? Okay, so what the guys want to see, and I've just got some notes here, if you can just ignore that. So essentially they would, oh, sorry, you don't need to see that, sorry. So let's jump into the Power BI here. Sven, if you guys can just let me know if there's hands up, because I'm not looking at covering the team screen, so I won't see any hands or anything.
All right, I'll do that for you. No worries.
Cool. All right, so just high-level overview. So we've imported all the data into our table. There was another issue that we actually picked up. So it's not just about the Snowflake information, but there was actually about a sum issue. And maybe I can just showcase that to you so you understand what I'm speaking about. So in Excel, if you go and sum all of the durations here, by default, Excel, when it gets to 24 hours, it then starts again. Power BI does the same. It doesn't resume with its 24 hours to go 24, 25, 26 hours. Instead, it does that. And what you usually need to do is you've got to change your Excel formula to do like a square bracket inclusive, and then it will do 24 hours. So if you maybe added on something like that, why is that doing that? Oh, sorry. So let's make that maybe 18 hours. So then that'll be 42 hours. So you can see that's kind of how you want that thing to grow, where if it's just your normal age, then it repeats every 24 hours. So that's actually one of the things we had to tackle as well. All right, so let's just move this back over here. So just on our calendar table, so if we have a look at our calendar table, we've just created that. We've got our date columns, we've got a date time column. Not many guys use that. Date time ID, dates, etc. There was an interesting thing that we had brought up. If you wanted to cater for date time columns properly, you would essentially, if you're working on seconds, you need to have an entry in your calendar for every second of the day. Now, the problem with that is, yeah, you can see in the integer format, you can see why that's important. Your decimal time, when you're working with a date time, comes through as 000001, 00002, etc. But for every day, you would need, for every day of the month, you would need 86,400 entries per day. So for 1 year in your calendar table, you would need 31 million records, which is fine if you only had 1 year for your calendar. But as you can imagine, for a 2-year calendar, you'd have 63 million records, etc. So it was something we wanted to touch on, but we're just going to skip that for now, just for time's purposes. So I'm going to go through on the profile tables quickly. So here's our data for our employee profiles. It was their IDs, their from dates, to dates. And then what we had to do was, so we've got durations, which is all from the Excel documents I showed, the hourly rates. We actually had to introduce these columns we added wasn't just like a quick fix. You know, we didn't just go, okay, we add this, add this, add this. It was obviously as we were trying to figure out the best way to resolve the problem, we realized, okay, we need a date of column. So we can see that that was the date for the from date. We need an end of month column. We need the week starting of, if you're going to use that. So if they've got 2 different profiles in the month, then you can use the latest profile, etc. And then a second issue that we picked up was for your duration to work, that thing I was showing in Excel, to sum up more than 24 hours, you actually need to work with your duration either in seconds or in minutes. I opted for minutes. But if there's, I'm not going to go into too much time about that, but you need to work with duration intervals or integers to do duration calculations properly. Okay. So on our calendar table or our profiles tables, we've added extra columns. And then on our shifts table, so on our shifts, we've got the same thing, just the duration, the employee ID, we added in the date, so that we've got a date for the clock in date. And then again, we converted our 8 hours 24 to 504 minutes. Okay. There's all of our various DAX measures. We then went onto our job card table, very similar thing, had to add a date and a duration integer. And then once we had done all of that, we could connect our calendar to our various things, to our shifts, our profiles, and to our job cards. Okay. So the expected output that they wanted to see was they wanted to see for each employee, they wanted to see what their profile minutes showed. So it said employee number 1, if he works for the week, then they're expecting to see a 46-hour week. Employee 2, they're expecting to see a 25-hour week, and employee 3, 39-hour week. That's the minutes, etc. If you compare that to the actual shifts worked, then that was different. So to say for January, this guy only worked, his shift was 5 hours 75 or 345 minutes. We've got the job card information, so to show how many job cards they worked on. So the job cards versus shifts is, I've come to work, but I haven't had any actual work to do. So maybe you're waiting for parts, and so you actually haven't done any work. So then your job card time is 0, even though you've been at work. Okay. And so then what they would want to see in the output was to see the employee profile. So the number of shift days worked. So they've worked 1 day for the month. Their profile says that they need to work, because it's only for the 1 day, that day he needs to have worked a 10-hour shift. And then they want to see his shift minutes versus, that's his shift minutes that he's worked, and then the variation. So he's only worked his shift versus profile has only done it 57% of the profile. Okay. And maybe that ties in with he's always late for work, or he's always working late, that kind of thing. The next thing they would have wanted to see would be to see their shifts versus the job cards. So you can see he's worked 1 day shift. His shift was 345 minutes, but his job card duration was 315 minutes, or minus 30 minutes. So he didn't, obviously he's waiting for parts or something there. So that's the minus 30 minutes. And his performance for the day on job cards that he's worked was 91% versus 3% for the month. And then the last one was to show the employee profile versus the job cards. So very similar, it's shift versus job cards, and now it's profile versus job cards, because that's a different picture. So your shift, you can be at work, as we mentioned, but you're not actually doing any job card work. So yeah, you can see the 1 day that he's worked, his job card was 315 minutes of 600. So his profile percentage is actually 52% instead of 91%. So that's the output that they would have wanted to see. Any questions before I jump onto the next thing there? All good? Okay. So if we look at the employee shift hours, so just again, high level for the month, we can see how many hours they've worked for the month, and then we've converted it into minutes, and then the number of days for the month that they've worked. Oops, wrong one. So if we look at the actual shift table, so I've just got all the shifts descending order here. And yeah, you can see that issue that we've got where the shift duration, if you sum duration in DAX, it resets every 24 hours. So that's why you've got to work with the minutes. So 302 minutes instead of 14 hours. So that one's quite important. And then our shifts versus, so it's just the same data. We've just pivoted the employees at the top here. So it's easier to see. He's got a 5 hour 45 shift, where that's not 7.5 hours, it's 103 minutes. Okay, or 103 hours actually, I think it is, for the month. Okay. So that's the shift information. Then if we look at the shift versus profile, what I've done here is I've just frozen the profile snapshot here quickly for this employee number 1, because his profile was in October. And then our other 2 employees, their profiles are in January, if you recall what that profile table looked like. So when you're looking at the January period, you only see the profile for employee 2 and 3, because they have entries in January. So what we needed to do was write a whole bunch of DAX calculations that goes and fetches the profile minutes for this employee. Yeah, so you can see his minutes that he should have worked on a Monday is 480, 480, 480, 420, 600, and 300. And you'll see those profile times coming through there. Then we're showing the days, number of days that he worked. So on a Friday, only worked 1 Friday in the month of January. And then it calculates the difference. So his shift duration was 345 minutes, and the difference between the 345 and the 600 is the minus 255. So that's how we're able to get that. And then that was just some validation we're done for the stuff. I'm not going to jump into that now for the sake of time. So maybe what I should just jump into instead of jumping through all of this is just to go and show our DAX guide. So for our Friday shifts calculation, I just want to bring that up on the side here. Let's start with the Monday shifts. So for the Monday shifts, the first thing we had to do was we're working with variables in our DAX calculation. I'm actually going to copy and paste everything, guys, if you just bear with me rather. So what we're saying here, actually so when you're working with variables in DAX, you have to use returns codes and stuff. Sven did ask we explain why we use these. It's an easy way to troubleshoot if you're using variables in your DAX calculations, because then you can return specific things. So you can say return the period or return whatever else you've got in there. So in our case, let's just put this back. So yeah, I'm returning the TPI, the tech profile hours. But I'll just run through what we've done essentially. So let me just recopy that and paste that in. So our period, it's using the selected value from our calendar. So if I click off of there, so on our calendar, that's our selected period over there. So take the selected value of the calendar, then go and calculate the end of the month from the calendar. So filter all period. So for January, go and fetch the maximum date, which would be the 31st of Jan. Then look at the employee ID and get their clock in information, get the end of month information. And so with all of these variables we've just added on, we're able to then bring back the results that we were wanting. I'm not going to go through the rest, but you'll see here's all our calculations. So because in this profile, everything revolves around a profile that's on a Monday to Sunday based thing, I've got to do a shift work calculation for days of the week. We've done on the profiles, you'll see we've done the same thing to calculate the profile hours that they've worked. So here's where we had to do some work for that week profile starting of, etc. And so once we've got all of those measures created, we're then able to build this final report now. So if we look at January, you can see the employee profiles. So his max end of month profile is October, January, and January for staff number 1, 2, and 3. We said that the profile need to have he's got to work 46 hours in the week, but he's only worked that. And then we were able to take the 46 hours for his profile. And what would that look like? Because if someone says to you 103 hours, okay, how much is 103 hours? So what we did was we converted it to days, and there's a measure that you can use, and also gets a little bit complicated, but you can go and calculate the days, the hours, the remaining hours, etc. And then your result that you return can be the number of days, and then the up to 24 hours and the minutes remaining. So that's what we've done there, and actually sums up the totals correctly in this case as well. So it was a total of 4 days, because then that 22 plus the 15, it overlaps 14. Makes sense to everyone, I'm sure of it. Shift versus job cards. So just again, so his shift was a 5-hour, 45 hour shift. He worked for the 1 day, it's 345 minutes. So just how we converted all of that. And then we were able to build the profile versus shift report, and we were able to do these variance calculations for them. So just using all the different DAX calculations. But the key to this whole thing, to building these results like this, was to go and figure out back on these things on our calendar. Not so much on the calendar, but more on the shift here. Just you've got to bring in your date column, you've got to work in duration integers, and then on the employee profiles, we needed to add in the from date, end of month date, week starting of date, and that duration integer for that. And yeah, based on that, we were able to build all the reports. Sorry, it was very rushed. I'm very aware of time. Any questions? All good.
Just pausing to give everyone a chance to ask questions if there are any.
Cool.
I'm feeling very guilty now for having added more and more stuff, jabbering away and then not giving you enough time. Sorry, man.
But I almost feel like yours was more valuable. That's why I was like, sure, this is a nice to have scenario, but your calculated measures are, I think, just as important for everyday scenarios.
Yeah, that's kind of you to say, but actually I disagree. I think what you showed here is so very, very practical. I actually think many businesses will ask their Power BI expert, please, can you do some analysis about time and shifts and rates between January and June, and then a new rate kicks in then, and you know, when you talk about it, it actually sounds quite easy, but it's not an easy thing. It's definitely not white, yellow or orange belt. It's requires some thinking, and as you just in the short space of time been able to just alert people to certain things that they must be aware of. Like, for instance, I mean, you touched on it so fast, but I mean that normalized, denormalized. I mean, I remember you and I chatting about it. You had like hundreds and hundreds of tables in the system that you were having to work in. Okay, now that's just crazy normalization. So you've got to actually make it a bit easier to combine certain of that data. That's the one thing. And the other one, as you mentioned, is the date and time. If you need to do time analysis, as Michael said in the chat there, definitely do not keep the date and time combined, because your calendar table will not work. Okay, if it's a date calendar, it will not work against the transactions. So you've got to split them out. So that's extremely relevant. And then all the other bits and pieces that you showed, and how the model goes together, and what the end result is, and the shift patterns, I think it was excellent. So really, really very well done. Brilliant presentation. Thank you. Hopefully everyone else enjoyed it as well. Casper, I see you've put in a note there about a book from Reza Rad. Yes, he does a lot of blog posting, a lot of content out on the web. I have not read any of his books, so but I'd imagine they'd be good. You've gone and recommended one there as well, so that's great. I'm nervous of the time, so I'd said if there's time, we'll do some more visual calculations, but let me not do that. Rather, I'm just going to share my screen again. So now you should have PowerPoint. Previously there was one QR code, now there are two. Please, can you all fill in the survey so that we know what to do next? More of this, less of that kind of story. Again, if you want to volunteer to do a BI Flash or a main topic, we are looking for volunteers. And then the yellow one is what I've just added now. It is exactly the same as the link that I shared, the GitHub repo. So sometime next week, I will publish the screenshot images of each of the PowerPoint slides of the presentations and so on. With that, I basically say that the meeting's come to an end, although I'm happy to stay behind and answer questions if there are people who need to drop off. You're welcome to do so. And again, I just want to say thank you to our speakers, in this case, JP and Darryll. Found your presentations really, really helpful. Thank you very much. Right. Any questions, you're welcome to stay behind and ask, no problem. Thanks for the claps and the thumbs up and so on. That's great. Excellent. Just making a note or two. Cool. All right. Well, it looks like there aren't any questions. So I'm going to stop the recording. Wait, hold on. Helen, yes, hands up. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm not sure if anyone else is interested, but I wanted to find out a little bit more about the rank that was in the Power BI visual calculations that you did. Is it possible to go back to that at least?
Yes.
If anyone wants to climb off, they're welcome to, but I don't know.
Yeah, I did it so fast.
Yes.
And there are a couple of things just to move through there. I actually looked at my notes afterwards and realized that I'd actually only covered about half of what I'd intended to cover. despite Darryl's generosity for time. Yeah, we didn't cover it all off. So let me just get the file open first of all, and then anyone who wants to stay behind can look at that. So we were on this report here. Okay, fine. So I tell you what, I'm gonna answer two questions in one here. So first of all, let's look at a normal. Oh no, in fact, I didn't do any normal rank measures, but I mean the rank. Normal DAX rank measure isn't that scary. Once you get the pattern, you can do it, but it is an expensive measure, meaning it's very intensive. Right, so then as a visual calculation, wrong button, we've got, let's just do the normal one, okay, not the weighted one. Okay, so it starts off the same, rank X, okay, X meaning iterator, okay. Now, in the normal DAX, it wants a table, and all sorts of stuff. Then you've got to use all in there, otherwise it ranks the one item against itself, so therefore it's rank 1, and then the next item is also rank 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So you've got to have all around your table. Then you've got to tell it what measure to use, sales amount. Then you've got to say descending or skip. So actually it's very, very similar, but what is different and makes it easier or more better performance is rows. Okay, now rows it's a variable, it's a thing that you can change here. So what it's really doing is it's ranking the rows of this table, but now the layout of your visual might be different. You might actually have them across the top, in which case you can replace that with columns, although in this case it wouldn't make any sense. But just looking here, you can see that they've got a couple of options for you. These little squiggly arrows or whatever, that's all visual calculation related. So here's all the other functions, but these at the top, columns, rows are obviously rows, and then they've even got going, this way or this way. Now I haven't used these that often. I haven't used visual calculations a lot, which means I haven't even tried this kind of wavy thing. But what I will say is that visual calculations are becoming more and more powerful with more and more features and more functions. So it is definitely something that I'm going to spend more time on in future and encourage other people to do it, because I think there's definitely a strong reason to use it. Okay. And especially if you've got like this versus previous is easier, is relatively easy. What was the example of the really hard one? Anyway, there are a couple of examples where you're trying to compare, let's just say, orange mist to, I can't think of an example. So not well, in actual fact, so previous helps if you're doing months and years. You can go back and forwards months and years, but you can't really easily go backwards and forwards between item 1 and item 2 and item 3 unless they're numerically different. So like item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, because then you can go item X minus 1 gives you the one before. But in a real visual, you can't do that. So if you're sorting it from highest to lowest or alphabetically, I guess you would want to do it highest to lowest or whatever. It's really hard to go the current one minus the previous one. Certainly DAX can handle it, but context gets in your way in a significant way. So that's why these kind of things are easy. And then let's just overwrite this for a bit. Here you can look at some patterns versus next versus first versus last. Is that kind of story very hard in DAX, whereas in this case, let's just see what it says. Field, meaning sales amount, minus next field. So quite easy, okay? And you can obviously, in this case, choose what's in this visual to be selected. So it makes it much easier. So Helen, did I answer your question there?
Yeah, I think you did. I just wanted to see a little bit more detail and find out a bit more about the visual calculations myself. I've never played around with them,
Yes.
but I know that in the past some of my ranks have completely bombed out my visualizations because that they have been so computationally expensive. And being able to see the different ranks all combined here is actually very useful.
Yeah, just one little tip. If it is that you're doing a normal rank, rank on a dimension if at all possible. So rank on the products table rather than on the sales table, okay? Because then it doesn't have to rank 1 million transactions. It can rank maybe 10 products or 100 products or even 1,000 products, you know, that kind of story. So you will find that easier, but you might even have done that, and you might have a very big dimension table as well. So it depends.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate
it's a
it.
great pleasure. Cool. I'm going to end the meeting. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next time. Have
Thanks,
a good
Sven.
one.
Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
sure. Thank you, Darryll.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Em.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.